pledging their commitment one by one to peace, tolerance and violent-free campaigning. All this for a free and fair election. It's such incidents, attacks and even politically motivated killings which have pressed the IEC to hold this ceremony so soon. It's raised its concerns about recent incidents of political violence. Today, political parties pledged to adhere to the Electoral Code of Conduct, to allow each other to campaign freely, recruit members and hold meetings without interference or intimidation.
I think time has come that all of us must understand that no person, particularly at leadership level, will get any mileage by promoting violence.
The IFP and NFP, both at loggerheads, have undertaken to respect the spirit of the pledge.
We actually urged our members to make sure that they actually give other parties a chance to campaign wherever we are.
In our side as NFP, we will allow each and every political party to participate and to campaign wherever we are.
And for those who break the rules, there will be consequences.
If a party violates the code, the matter is taken to the Electoral Court, and the Electoral Court in fact fines against such a party. A party registration may be cancelled, it may be disqualified from contesting the elections.
The IEC has also urged parties to cooperate and ensure they do not hold events in the same areas at the same time. I'm Mhlongo, SABC News, Durban.
Personalities in the community.
Okay. Our intrepid journalist there, Ayanda Mhlongo, bring you that story with regards to the IEC, and they're hoping for a peaceful elections this year. Remember, May 7th is the poll. Now, indeed, we are in the midst of our election coverage. The plan is to take you around the country, and where we focus and profile various towns and cities all across South Africa. This is the first of its on Morning Live, and we'll bring you some of the issues that are emanating from these towns and cities. We will be talking about things that are positive and things that are negative, things that have worked and things that haven't worked thus far. And we're coming to you live from the KwaZulu and Northern KwaZulu-Natal. It's here where we find our political parties. We've got a number of guests here to discuss their vision as well as their promises to you, the electorate. When you go and cast your vote on May the 7th, you'll be well informed after this conversation. KwaZulu-Natal is indeed in the national landscape, a very important player in the national landscape. Also very significant things happened here. Remember, former President Nelson Mandela cast his vote right here in KwaZulu-Natal. It has indeed a rich history, but also a volatile history. If you go back to the 90s and where political violence actually raged in KwaZulu-Natal. Now, I want to put that to my guest, and let me introduce them, starting with Sihle Zigilala. He's with the ANC. He's the provincial secretary. Then we have from the NFP, the National Freedom Party, Professor Nhlanhla Kobisa. He joins us. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Then we have Sizwe Mqunu. He's the provincial leader of the DA. And then to his left and my right, we have from the Minority Front, the party's leader, Shamin Thakur Rajbansi. And of course, Albert Nwango. He's from the IFP, and he's the IFP's national deputy national chairperson. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Let's get straight into it. We were talking about political violence, and many say that that is a big problem in KwaZulu-Natal. It has been a problem in KwaZulu-Natal, seemingly gotten better, but there has been this certain hotspots that often reared its head. Firstly, do you think it's possible, Albert Nwango, to have free and fair elections here in KwaZulu-Natal?
Oh yes, it is possible, notwithstanding the fact that we actually have traveled a long way, starting from the early 80s actually, when we had black on black violence in this province, which actually resulted in so many people actually losing their lives. But many strides actually have been made over the years up to here, except that of course you still have some pockets of intolerance here and there, where some political parties would not allow others to actually conduct free activities. But I think that is manageable. as far as I'm concerned. And of course you have a very localized, hotspot, such as in KwaMashu, for instance, which is in the hostel. And I think that also can actually be managed. But by and large, we are looking forward to a very peaceful elections in this province.
Your party as well as the NFP have come together indeed in trying to form a task team to sort out some of the issues there in KwaMashu hostel, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, KwaMashu, has, in my view, been blown out of proportion. It's a localized small thing, which actually, in my view, is a police matter. KwaMashu hostel has actually always been a hamlet of criminality. Yeah. And there have been people dying there for as long as I can remember, long before the NFP actually came into the picture. Now, the issue is, have we been successful in actually eradicating and rooting out the criminal element there? And also the issue there is about development. Why are other hostels not actually experiencing the same problem as KwaMashu hostel is experiencing? Of course, it has to do with the level of service delivery, the level of development there. For myself, it is only the KwaMashu hostel that actually has a lot of slums. Yeah. And that actually becomes a hotbed for criminality. For instance, a person who killed a Sangoma, who is reported to have had some muti for the Marikana workers, was actually found in KwaMashu. The suspect was actually apprehended in KwaMashu. So that tells you that KwaMashu is indeed a safe haven for criminality. So that is why I'm saying it is largely a criminal and police matter rather than political. But however, as politicians, we are also getting involved to make sure that indeed peace prevails in that.
Indeed, we'll explore that a bit more. Shamin Takurajbansi, the IFP seems to think that the situation there in KwaMashu has been blown out of proportion. It is, as they say, a police matter. In terms of generally in KwaZulu-Natal, do you think we can have free and fair elections here?
I believe it's all about cooperacy. There is a section in Schedule 2 of the electoral law. In the Code of Conduct, it speaks about parties cooperating. And we can quell violence if we can speak to one another. It's about communication, but also collective action so that, our efforts are maximized and we see the end of violence in this province. But I think yesterday we had one momentous occasion, and that was the signing of the Code of Conduct. That has a moral bearing on each leader, because we are supposed to then inculcate ethical values downstream. That means to our candidates, our volunteers, our members, and we've got to continuously train them, because if these things occur, violence, etc., or intimidation, especially of women. The killing of women I want to condemn during the elections, because there's a specific section in the Act that prohibits this. If we are to empower women politically, we have to end the violence and intimidation against women. And I think that then only we can say that we can have free and fair elections, because we have to ensure that at the end of the election period, the complaints that go to the IEC are reduced, there are no killings, and that we can go to Parliament with a clear conscience that nobody has died for us to get there.
Sizwe Mchunu, how seriously does the DA take this Electoral Code of Conduct that was signed yesterday in KwaZulu-Natal?
We take the Electoral Code of Conduct very seriously. We made a very clear pledge yesterday that we fully commit ourselves behind the pledge and the Code of Conduct. But also, let me say, the Democratic Alliance is founded on the principles of discipline, respect for the law, but also respect for the Constitution as a supreme law of our country. And we therefore believe that if all of us as leaders of various political parties were to be responsible both in terms of our conduct but also in terms of our utterances, we would actually be able to actually bring about a peaceful election in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Probably almost all of us sitting here have been victims of political intolerance, but also of political violence in this province. And I think it's a history that not even a single person in this province wants to go back to. I myself, sitting here, lost both my brother and my sister during the political violence in this province. It is a chapter that I'm ready to close in my life, but it is also a chapter that I think has got to be closed for all the people of KwaZulu-Natal. It is indeed very shameful that 20 years into democracy, we are still sitting here discussing issues of political intolerance and intimidation in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. By this time, I think, from us as a Democratic Alliance, we expect, and we've made this call consistently to all political parties, that let us actually have a new pledge. And that pledge is to say we all want to allow democracy to prosper. We want to therefore create a space of political tolerance and actually political understanding as we move across. I might as well share with you that we've actually started now keeping records of incidents of political intolerance and intimidation and even attacks on our members and our activists, because we do have such cases that have happened in this particular province. But also we are confident that if we all actually commit ourselves to actually being responsible leaders and actually take care of the issues that affect our voters day to day, there will indeed be a peaceful peaceful election in this province. The people of KwaZulu-Natal are indeed ready for change. But also the people of KwaZulu-Natal are really ready for change that will actually improve their lives for the better. And political intolerance, therefore, should no more be an issue today. I think we now need to talk about real offers and real change for our people, and that's exactly what we want to do as a Democratic Alliance in this election.
Professor Kubisa, do you share the Democratic Alliance's vision in terms of obviously closing that chapter down in terms of the 90s? We don't want to go back there. Current incidents puts a bit of fear in many people leading up to this elections. Can you dispel that fear going into these elections?
Yes, my brother, I must say it's quite a disgrace that 20 years into democracy there is this resurgence of political intolerance. We never thought that we'll have places that will be the hotspots of bloodbath at this time of democracy. It's a question of inculcating a message into our members, understanding that the freedom of expression, the freedom of association, the freedom of movement, and as enshrined in our constitution, has got to be upheld. Each and every part and individual should be free to campaign freely wherever he or she wants to. But then there are other elements which I think have crept in with regard to the resurgence of violence. There is an element of the rogue element there, element of crime, element of kind of politics of patronage, greed, people killing one another just for sheer reasons. But then I think it is important and incumbent upon all leaders to exercise some kind of responsibility. As the National Freedom Party, we said there is a dire need for a multi-party kind of an approach where we sit down and we talk about this, and we've already taken strides in doing that. And of course, we've had some bilaterals with the IFP immediately after the gunning down of the two ladies, that's Miss Mzila and also Miss Biela, which is a very unpalatable situation in our country, especially at this time of our democracy. We want to condemn that in as strong as possible terms. I should think it needs a kind of a multi-sectoral approach. The law enforcement agencies have got to come in and ensure that they are visible in the area and ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book, they are arrested, and they face the full might of the law. That is number one. Number two, there is also an issue of socio-economic conditions within the hostels. A lot has to be done. Housing has got to come in, health has got to come in, education has got to come in, welfare has got, and many other departments, so that those children who play there should be free to play. And those of our mothers and our fathers who get in and out should feel safe. We cannot postpone their safety. It is a dire need. And also it is also imperative that as political leaders, we must ensure that we don't make some utterances and statements that will serve to fan the flames of violence, because we have got to be responsible. Songs, derogatory and inflammatory remarks directed to the leaders are all causes for concern, and we've got to exercise responsibility, and we must understand that we are all citizens of this country, citizens of KwaZulu-Natal. Therefore, we need peace and stability, and the NFP is prepared to ensure that there is peace. We need service delivery in this country. We need schools, we need education, we need health, we need housing. You need clean. The hostel itself needs to be cleaned up. You know, some kind. There must be family units there. I think a lot of attention has got to be put in KwaZulu-Natal. Now this thing is taking our focus away from service delivery. But I should think we are all committed to ensure that there is peace and stability, there is tranquility in the province of KwaZulu and in the country as a whole.
Mr. Sikelala, I was speaking to the Premier earlier on, Senzo Mchunu, and he is very confident that we can in fact have peaceful, free and fair elections in KwaZulu-Natal. From the ANC's point of view, can individuals campaign anywhere they want to in this province?
I must start by saying that KwaZulu-Natal were moved quite a long way from the history of violence, which was very bad, which caused the loss of life of many people. We work hard, right from the unbanning of the ANC, from former President Nelson Mandela, who called for peace in KwaZulu-Natal, through to the work that was done by President Jacob Zuma while he was still a leader of the ANC, engaging in particular with the IFP to create peace. And there were peace talks, there were agreements signed, and that process was taken to lower levels, and we've sustained that engagement since then. We must say that it is possible to have peaceful elections, free and fair elections. As the ANC, we proposed in the legislature the creation of a multi-party forum, which is constituted by all political parties. And that is in existence. It is chaired by the MEC for Safety and Community Liaison. It is ensuring that in all hotspots, in areas where there's violence, it get in, ensure that there are democratic debates that take place to create a better environment for free and peaceful elections. We must also discourage provocation, where each party provoke the other parties. We must ensure that all parties enjoy free space to campaign wherever they want to go to campaign. I can assure you that moving from that history of 1994 up to now, we must all be determined to see free and fair elections which are also free of violence. It doesn't mean that when there is elections, people must be killed, people must lose their life. Elections are a platform and an opportunity for people to decide democratically which party they want to vote for. It is that democracy that as the ANC we strive for many years. It is that democracy that leads to development, because without peace there will be no development in this country. And as the ANC, we stand firm for the development of our people, of KwaZulu-Natal, but of South Africa as a whole.
Let's just talk about development, and maybe it's a good segue to get into the other election issue of unemployment and job creation. That seems to be a topical issue among many political parties and many South Africans, especially the youth. The current unemployment rate from the last time I looked was sitting at 24.10% in the fourth quarter of 2013. Lots of work to be done, isn't it?
It is. It is a concern to us as the organization. It is a concern to the nation as a whole. That's why the manifesto of the ANC is very clear on job creation. One thing that we've taken, which is in the manifesto but it is currently implemented, it's youth incentive scheme that we've introduced. Just within the month of introducing that program, it has absorbed 56,000 young people. And this is what we're saying, that let us take young people through this youth incentive program, which will help them to get skills, but it will also provide them with experience, and it will ensure that they get absorbed into permanent employment. The government of the ANC, led by President Jacob Zuma, has created 6 million job opportunities through the expanded public works program. We are working hard in developing rural areas. We have ensured that about 500 farms are restituted to the people who have claimed those farms. And that has benefited more than 1.8 million families. And this is going a long way. We're saying it is not yet an end. There is a long route to go. There is still a great journey to travel to eradicate poverty in our society. That's why we're saying over the next 5 years, we're going to roll out an infrastructure development program, which will also be based on absorption, labor absorption, to ensure that people get work and to ensure that they get skills and experience to be absorbed into permanent employment.
Professor Kubiso, I see you nodding there. What's the NFP have to say about job creation, creating jobs, especially here in KwaZulu-Natal?
You see, my brother, the question of job creation has resulted in some kind of apathy and discontentment among our people. There is a wave of despair that is going around. You see all these kind of riots, these kind of sit-ins and so forth. They are all signs that there is a wave of apathy that is raging in our country. When unemployment has grown to a level of 24.10%, when we have the miners that have lost their jobs, and by the way, about 900 million has been lost in salaries in South Africa, in the mines, through the loss of job. Amplats has lost more than 5,000 jobs. So this is the cause for concern. Something has got to be done. As the NFP was saying, it is also important to link the issue of jobs to skills development. For instance, in schools, that's where it begins, that our learners must get the right education. It is imperative that when we give education, we give free basic education, and we ensure that our education is of that standard and quality. And when a learner gets out of matric at the age of 18, he or she has got a driver's license, has got a computer literacy certificate, is to make him or her employable, just to get a job hereafter, and to ensure that those schools are not dilapidated. Those schools have got laboratories, have got libraries, and the infrastructure is there. We bring into the rural areas science and maths teachers, and we give them incentives. It begins with education, education and education. And then we ensure that most of our youth are not displaced. They are not roaming around the street. We create more jobs to them, and we harness them. We harness our youth into permanent jobs, and we bring an end to labor brokering, because it is killing our country. We must ensure that this is all done. We do some kind of audit to find out how many of our youth are not employed, how many of our people are not employed. Make sure that you give some power to the municipalities, so that they are able to create some infrastructure, roads, sanitation, able to create some housing, so that our people in the rural areas are employed. You ensure that you create some cooperatives so that the rural women, they are able to be employed and they get into the jobs. All this, we do some kind of a land audit, because there is a lot of land that is lying out there that is unused. We do some kind of land audit. The state land is audited. We ensure that our people are given skills. They're able to farm. They're able to create jobs for themselves. All these are matters that must be brought to bear if we want to change the landscape of KwaZulu-Natal.
Indeed,
and
Professor,
South Africa as a whole.
Skills development is also a big issue. What does the DA have to say? You guys are promising a lot of jobs, millions of jobs. In terms of skills, in terms of job creation, what do you have in plan?
Look, thank you very much. From the outset, let me say that the Democratic Alliance is in partnership or join hands with the millions of South Africans that are crying for change in South Africa and are crying for change in KwaZulu-Natal. Change that actually brings about sustainable and permanent jobs, as opposed to what we are talking about today, particularly, which I think comes from my colleagues from the ANC, the issue of EPW jobs. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as we are concerned, EPWP are just work opportunities but not really jobs. South Africans are in need of jobs for them to be able to be self-sustainable and less dependent on the state. What seems to be happening or emerging in the current under the current administration in South Africa is that we are creating a society that is more and more dependent on the state. I mean, the fact that even we are sitting here today talking about the rate of unemployment sitting at almost a quarter of our population being unemployed, that is a disgrace 20 years into democracy. But the issue here is that we need to create jobs that are sustainable, that jobs that will actually make people less dependent on the state. Hence, we are therefore, as the DA, making an offer to say we want to create 6 million sustainable jobs in South Africa. But also,
practically, how would that work? Practically,
I mean, let me explain. The first thing is obviously there is a critical need for us to improve our education, but also have a targeted focus on skills development and actually initiative that will actually seek to empower people such that they are employable as we move on. Because we must also understand that the problem in KwaZulu-Natal is that there are those that are unemployed because they are unemployable. But there are those that are unemployed, yet they have the relevant qualifications and skills, which again, another problem that comes to play there is the issue of cadre deployment that has actually largely closed gates for people that are actually have suitable qualifications that are not employed because they are not aligned to a party that is ruling in that particular municipality or province. But again, let me also point out to you, in this particular province, the then Premier, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, started a program in 2009 which was called the Youth Ambassadors. To this end, we are yet to see how many young people have benefited and actually had sustainable jobs through that program. In fact, I say it mouthfully, that I think that program has been a disaster and a failure. Every financial year, it has actually overspent, but it has not really produced jobs for young people in this province. But over and above that, the Democratic Alliance took an initiative to have an engagement with the Premier in terms of saying, actually, you know what? There is already a budget allocated in South Africa for the youth wage subsidy, which will allow us a space to actually be able to skill young people and place them in employment and therefore making them economically active. The Premier committed that yes, we were going to implement the youth wage subsidy in KwaZulu-Natal. It is the end of the term in the next couple of months, and we are yet to see that program being rolled out. So indeed, the cry in this province is the cry for change. But we are also saying, as a Democratic Alliance, we are partnering with the people of KwaZulu-Natal in that cry. We share their cry, and we believe that there has to be change that brings about sustainable jobs.
Indeed, well, the DA is saying a cry for change. Shamin Thakur-Rajbansi, your party seems to be against affirmative action, isn't it? Why?
Absolutely. I debated this as far back as 2000 when it was under review on the white paper because of the sunset clause, which is this year 2014. And now that we have reached 2014, the Minority Front is calling for the scrapping of affirmative action. Initially, we thought suspension was a good idea, like what the Americans had done years ago. But now we're really calling for the scrapping of affirmative action. And the reason is that there are many talented youth. There are many young individuals with degrees walking around without a job. And this is a discriminatory law. This law is affecting born frees, and therefore it is harmful to the economy. So that is why we're calling for that. But we're also calling for a minorities ministry so that it can look after minorities communities and the unfair quotas and all kinds of other adverse inclusion laws that actually don't make you part or relevant to the economy of South Africa. But coming to job creation, many parties are promising millions of jobs. But how do we get there? There's no plan in place. We just enacted the Tax Incentive Act or the wage subsidy. But the thing is that it's not implemented. And it's highly unlikely that it's going to get implemented if the private sector doesn't take this on. Although we're going to have then loads of money sitting in a fund ready to be used, and obviously, if it's not used, you're going to get corruption, just like so many other youth funds that have gone that way. But also, there are many constraints in the job sector. We got the union, we're a highly unionized country. We have got access to bank loans. We have got skills, lack of skills, and the FETs are very important here. And that is a sector of higher education that we are actually struggling in, because there are lots of school dropouts and there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And FETs have failed miserably. In fact, our province, KwaZulu-Natal, has lost FETs back to the national government.
I'm very interested in asking the IFP what they have to say in terms of affirmative action. It seems the MF is not interested in it. What does the IFP have to say?
Well, the IFP actually supports affirmative action. But of course, in its current form, the way in which it is being applied actually gives a lot of, leaves much to be desired. Because you need to first understand who you are affirming and move and say, how are you going to do that? Because if we are going to hide behind affirmative action to actually, to benefit a few to a point where actually they become so rich, and at the total neglect of the masses of our people, then we cannot support that. Coming back to the issue of job creation, I think this country, we are losing a lot of jobs than creating them. Let's face the facts. We wouldn't be at 24.10 if we were actually seriously creating jobs. But now, as IFP, our approach to job creation is a very holistic one, because you cannot look at job creation in isolation of other forces and other things that need actually also to be attended to. For instance, you need to create a condition, an economic condition that is conducive for job creation. Well, it starts with your education. How is your education structured? How does it help, to grow your economy? Because you are not going to create jobs if your economy is stagnant. You need to first grow your economy. How do you do that if your investment is actually poor? You need to be attractive. You need to be able to attract foreign investment into the country. How do you attract foreign investment if you have economic instability? So it's a whole range of issues that you need to deal with. So create an environment in your economy which will actually attract your investors.
We can actually go on talking about this, but time is not on our side. I'm just going to go through the panel and ask for last comments and be as brief as you can, just about 30 seconds or so. Let's start with the IFP. What's your promise? What's your vision for this election year?
Well, we launched on Sunday our manifesto, which is actually completely different from the rest of manifestos that I have seen. Why? Because it is firstly a product of serious consultation with the communities. And secondly, we are not actually just, promising pie in the sky. We are actually presenting action programs to address all of those issues that people are complaining about, such as poor service delivery and you name them.
Thank you very much.
So we have action programs there.
Mrs. Shamin Thakur Rajwansi, what's your vision?
Well, I'm calling on the electorate to support the minority front in this 2014 election with our slogan, One Vision, One Future, because it's about time that we stand up and we must be counted. We cannot afford to be marginalized anymore as minorities.
Thank you very much. The DA, what do they have to say?
Indeed, as I said earlier, we are fully behind South Africans' call for change in South Africa, but we are saying we want to be part of the journey that will bring about change that brings also sustainable jobs in South Africa. And we commit ourselves to making sure that we root out corruption, we improve education so that we therefore produce skilled young people that are going to be economically active, but also a broader society that is economically active, employed and self-sustainable going forward.
The NFP.
No, as the NFP, we say the people of South Africa have got to vote for the NFP to secure their future. We are their hope, we are their voice, we are their future. And we say, therefore, we are prepared to ensure that the government fiscus is not spent lavishly. We need to be very frugal when we spend the government fiscus, and we must ensure that the 31 billion is not misused or abused. It must be used to uplift the lives of the people. They need education, they need health, they need housing. And we're prepared to come in and say, let there be a task team that will look into corruption and ensure that it is transparent, and we give it the powers. People must vote the NFP. We are here. We are saying we're their voice at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Professor. Let's give the last word now to the ANC.
Working with the people of South Africa, we have achieved a lot and made South Africa a better place to be. We believe that we must continue working together and take South Africa forward. We must improve and ensure that we create jobs for our people. We must improve our education system and ensure access to education and skills. We must work together to ensure that we improve our health system. We have introduced the National Health Insurance Scheme, which we believe will help all people of South Africa, irrespective of their color or irrespective of whether they've got money or not. We are saying that working together, we can take this country forward and ensure that it is a better place where all people of our country will enjoy living in. And we call on people to vote for the ANC.
Thank you very much for your time. That's where we'll have